Hello and welcome to Velocity Talks. My name is Christopher Durham and I'm the president of the Velocity Institute. Today I'm excited to welcome Kevin Kennedy. I have been chasing Kevin Kennedy to do one of these for probably 10, 15 years through his long and outstanding career. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about who Kevin Kennedy is.
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in South Florida, so I take offense to the Florida man tag. I'm not the traditional Florida man. Started my kind of retail career with Champ Sports and Pacific Sunwear in stores, managing stores, and then quickly realized I wanted to kind of transition into the corporate world. There I got in with Sports Authority, which was down here in South Florida. Started as setting up SKUs. I ran a print room and printed all the green bar reports for all the buyers, got into assistant buying and allocation and replenishment. And they started a private label group. And I thought it was interesting and wanted to get away from reforecasting a forecast of the forecast and actually create some really cool products. And that's kind of what launched me into my private label career.
So the printing of reports was the old days where they all wanted their report on their desk on Monday morning.
On Monday morning, I was the most popular person in the building.
I remember those days. So part of the reason I wanted to talk to Kevin is Kevin, not unlike myself, has experience outside of traditional grocery, drug, mass, in private brands. And I honestly believe bringing in all channels, all categories makes the conversation much, much richer. So tell us about a couple of the roles you've had in the retailers that you were at.
Yeah, so at Sports Authority, I was a global sourcing manager. So fitness category, outdoors was like soccer, football. Estero was a private label brand we had. So we did a soccer cleat, a soccer ball, and some shin guards for $19.99. That was one of our most popular private label items.
Yeah, perfect price point. My kids
perfect price point. And then when kids are growing so fast and they actually, they're out of that size the next year, why would you want to spend $50 on a cleat and then $50 on a ball?
So you have a black version, a blue version, and a pink version in your
every year we changed the color, kept it pretty similar. And really one of the things that really got me hooked on private label was that item. My daughter was in Sabre soccer down here. Their coach quit. They needed a coach. I said, I'll do it. I went to coach, and more than half the team had the Estero soccer products on. It's like they didn't know me. They didn't know where I worked. And I was like, wow, people are actually using the product. So seeing people use the products you source is really cool. I remember telling my boss at the time, I'm always going to be in sports. I love sports. I always grew up with sports. And he said, Kevin, a process is process. A widget's a widget. You will not be in sports the rest of your career. And I said, you don't understand me. And then I quickly, after that, transitioned to Office Depot. So I went into sourcing the Foray pens and Office Depot binders, Office Depot sheet protectors, dry erase boards. And I was at Office Depot for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then as that ran its course and they merged with Office Max, I was looking for a change. I got a call from a recruiter, another company in South Florida, Chewy.com. I'd never heard of it. When I looked into them, they were about $200 million. I thought I'm probably making the worst choice of my career, leaving a $15 billion retailer to go to a $200 million e-commerce startup. And it was the best choice of my career. So I was at Chewy for 6.5 years. And then I ended up at GameStop as their VP of private label global sourcing for about 1 year and 8 months. So that's kind of been my progression of retailers and private label.
And were you at GameStop during all of the meme stock stuff?
Yeah, I was there during the meme craze. It's funny, when I tell people I work at GameStop, they'd either say, oh, they must be out of business. I haven't seen them in a while. Or it was the exact opposite reaction of diamond hands and to the moon and the stock and big Ryan Cohen fans. So it was, you got both spectrums on what people thought of GameStop.
Well, so you've kind of run the gamut from sports to pet to office to gaming, and seeing how private brand can play a lot of different roles in the assortment and at a retailer. Talk to me about some of those best practices that you've seen.
Yeah. In the beginning of my career, a lot of times private label was just a margin enhancer. It was go get something very similar at a cheaper price and let's make more margin. I think the big kind of change and aha moment came at my career was at Chewy. they were building this great customer service base. You call in, they know your pet's name, they know what you bought. They always had the best price. When they brought me in, they basically said, don't make private label inferior to national brand, make it better. So whenever we would do a presentation on what products we wanted to bring in, we had to go through Amazon and what are the top 3 negative reviews on Amazon and how can we fix those? How can we make it better? And oftentimes spending 5 or 10 cents extra took care of a problem that a customer was having. And then, so the Frisco private label brand, which was the hard good brand, it became the #1 selling brand on the site. The reviews were superior to national brand. The return rate was less. The margin was better. And it just played into that customer service Chewy role of I can only get these products at Chewy.
Yeah.
I paid less. I got more. And why would I shop anywhere else? So it really became less of, hey, I sourced this 4A pen and it made 70 points of margin. How do you get to 80 points of margin? It's like, I don't know. I take out ink, take out the ballpoint, remove a clip. At some point, it's like, is 70 points of margin not enough for this pen? Where Chewy was really spend a little more, take care of a problem that the customer is having. And then as we scale and grow, we'll get better payment terms, we'll get better costing, we'll get the efficiencies, and it'll become a brand that customers truly love. So that was kind of a switch in the just put it in packaging and it's a white packaging with a private label sticker on it to create a really cool brand.
I mean, it's the challenge, right? So your office supply, you only need so many pens, right? Yeah. And honestly, I hate to tell them, but pens are pretty easy to get free 9 times out of 10. So unless I'm just a rabid pen guy and want to pick up that tool pen or whatever, I can get it. Yeah. Pet and even sporting goods, right? Pet, when you go to accessories and toys and fashion, those people are rabid and they shop frequently.
Right.
So if private brand can not only drive margin and frequency,
right.
Ooh, there's the win, right?
Right. And unique products that you can only get there, right? So that was back at Sports Store, it was like, soccer cones. It was like, well, why don't we give 2 more or give 3 more for the same price, right? Where there was some benefit that the customer was getting as you sourced the product.
Honestly, who cares what brand the cone is?
Nobody cares. That's again, that was the one great thing at Chewy is like we had the data on what customers were searching, and customers were just searching dog crate, cat tree, potty pet. They don't know the brand. They didn't remember the brand. They weren't sourcing the brand. So what a great place for private label to come in and make a better product and really focus on the consumer
honestly, needs. A lot of the categories when I was at Lowe's Home Improvement were like that. People were looking for a water heater. They didn't even know what brand it should be.
Right. And they didn't remember what brand they bought.
No, but they trusted Lowe's or Chewy and said, well, if you sell it, it must be pretty.
Right. And I think the other thing we kind of did different when I was at Chewy was, don't trust that the factory's making it correctly. Like we were traveling to Asia, Canada, wherever our production was once a quarter. And we were walking the production line and where are your defects and how do we make it better? And if they had too many defects, how do we fix it? It's a better product and we get less returns, but we make the manufacturer more profitable because they're not having so many defects and having to throw things away. So it really became creating a partnership with a vendor, growing the business. And then as you asked for better pricing, better payment terms, safety stock, they saw the value in the business, in the partnership. And there wasn't a bid every year where someone was trying to move the business away by filling out a spreadsheet. So there's a lot to building relationships with your suppliers that will benefit you.
And it's protecting your brand. I mean, you're selling pet products. And I promise you that lady, if you hurt her dog or cat, is going to tell everybody she knows. And in this day and age, she knows 1 million people.
Right. Yes. The fur babies. People love their fur babies more than their own children. Sometimes I'm convinced of that.
Well, so talk about private brand a bit at GameStop. I mean, I have or he's now a 25-year-old stepson, but he's still a rabid gamer. Right.
Yeah.
So, I've been in those stores and shopped those with him, much to my dismay, honestly. But talk about how it works and what role it played in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, at GameStop, there was basically, 2 lines of business for private label. One was collectibles, so we had some licenses with Lucas and Pokemon and other vendors, and we were.
So I could get a Yu-Gi-Oh figure.
We'd have some mugs. We did a beanbag. We did some slippers. We did all kinds of little products. We had a phone. One of our best sellers was a Mandalorian the ship from Star Wars. It was a phone charger. You just laid your phone on it and charged. It did great volume.
So you guys were paying the licensing, and then your global sourcing and designers were taking care of all of that and coming in and paying Disney or whoever the appropriate fee.
Correct. And then we had the kind of gaming tech side. So we had Atrix brands, so cables, mice, keyboard, headphones, any kind of technology gaming type of product we had. So that was kind of the two lines of business that we had under private label.
And so how did that kind of dorky 16-year-old boy game shopper, I mean, did he buy into those things, or was that a beginning?
They bought into them. Again, on the collectible side, it was all about the fan and what did the fan want, and how do you keep unique products that the fan could only find at GameStop, and they would come buy there. And then the gaming side, again, we weren't doing the games or we weren't doing the consoles. So then it was what accessories could we do, add extra features and values to get the customer to want to buy them. So that was a unique experience. I'd say the one thing I kind of learned there is not every business can be Chewyized. We tried to add customer service. We added private label. We tried to grow online. We tried to match prices to everybody, and the volume didn't just come. Chewy was unique in the experience of you had the auto ship, you had someone buying a bag of dog food every month, and there was income coming in that would fund other growth avenues and opening more warehouses and getting closer to customers and investing more in private label and taking chances on new products and new colors. And so, the kind of takeaway for me there is not all businesses are Chewyizable.
Well, that's just a very different customer and shopper, right? So, what does that shopper need or want?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be different, obviously.
Yeah, and kind of as gaming is moving online and some type of things, you can just download games, less customers in store, less foot traffic. It reminded me of Office Depot. Was older systems, older habits, categories were shrinking. So then, as the pie is shrinking, what do you go after? How much do you invest? How much do you buy into categories? So it was Chewy.
Well, I mean, we've seen it at other retailers. I mean, so it wasn't that long ago. You walked into Best Buy and the whole front of it was all DVDs and CDs, right?
Right.
Right.
But just reinventing yourself is easier said than done, right? Changing a corporate culture, changing the thinking, changing the processes, changing what you're selling is a large overtaking that a lot of retailers try to do, and not all of them are successful at it.
Well, so it's an interesting conversation. So there's been a couple of big retailers recently who have really tried to leverage private brand to reinvent themselves. Notably, Bed Bath & Beyond. That I don't know that private brand could fix all their problems, honestly.
Right.
But Macy's just announced their reinventing portfolios and all kinds of stuff. What do you see when you look at reinvention and the role that private brand can play in a retailer?
Again, for me, I think it's unique products that you can only get at that retailer. Again, everybody's selling the same widget. And sometimes on national brand items, it's just a race to the bottom. Who has the cheapest price on Amazon? And everybody's matching them. And it's a race to the bottom where, for private label, you can be unique. You can be different. You can see what's happening in the industry. You can create your own designs. You can make a better product. There were lots of times where we spent, cat tree is an example I talk about often. When we read what was wrong, it was hard to assemble. It was my fat cat can't fit here or there. So on hard to assemble, we put a sticker on platform 1, sticker on post number 2, sticker 3. And if you can count to 30, you can assemble it. You don't have to read the manual. And we would take the manual, we'd show it to our customer service reps. We'd have somebody assemble a cat tree that has never assembled one before. And then you'd learn, oh, wow, they're always stuck on point number 4. It's clear to me, but I've assembled 500 of these. So let's change that. So just paying attention to the details. The toys hanging off it. A brand had 1 toy. The mouse cost 3 cents. Why don't I add 4 toys? There's more things hanging, more places for a cat to play. And then as cats are getting larger and people have multi-cat households, make the openings on the houses wider so they can fit in. And, the number one seller we had was kind of 3 posts and a ramp that just kind of sat on the house. It's like, let's put an L bracket behind it. We now have 4 points of connection. It's now sturdier. It has a thicker cover. It has more toys. It's easy, less frustration assembly. It was a 3-ply box and they're heavy. We were getting damages. We put it in a 5-ply box. We got less damages when it went FedEx or UPS. And all of a sudden you've solved the problem. You've made a better product. The customer pays less. And I remember my fear was, wow, well, customers notice all these things we put into it. And there were a lot of reviews early on that said, I would have paid $50 more at my local pet store for this product.
Well, it's because if you've bought crappy pet stuff, pretty
You know,
quickly.
you know.
It's
So
well, so a lot of your career has been in global sourcing, which for so many of our viewers, just because there's a lot of grocery and folks out there that they're buying potato chips from the local Pennsylvania potato chip factory or whoever, may not have large global sourcing programs. So talk to me about the importance of global sourcing and private brand, and how you see that.
yeah, I think the big thing on sourcing is making sure you set it up correctly, right? And it takes time, right? Are you doing factory audits? Are you visiting them and comparing the features and benefits of each production line, and what are their strengths and who are they making products for? So, and then what's the raw material? Like I remember we sourced cork boards from Portugal because they had a lot of the trees that had cork. So, there's often times where production is based upon, where the raw material comes from. So I think for me, just making sure, do you have a social audit? Are you doing product testing? Are you making sure the customer is getting a better product? So everybody loves the margin, but there is a process and a team and an SOP that has to be created and steps that have to be taken in order to do it correctly and do it.
Well, I mean, I'll never forget it when I started at Lowe's and they said, "Oh, everything's done, but now you need to do your transit testing."
Oh, right.
So you need to make sure that light fixture is going to get from China to store in one
no
piece.
damage. Right.
And they weren't messing around about it.
Right. We at Chewy, when there's no stores, it's all e-commerce. Everything goes FedEx, UPS. I often would joke with people. I'm like, the FedEx drivers, UPS, they must hate me because we had a 54-inch crate that was a huge item, or we had a 72-inch cat tree that was in a giant box that was heavy. And I can imagine them just kicking it off the back of their truck because they're so sick of moving so many of them. So we'd have the vendors, drop it on 9 sides from 3 feet on 2 flat-ons on 2 corners, and we'd open it up. Is it broken? And a lot of in the beginning on cat trees, we'd find out, oh, that post keeps breaking. We have to move it to a different area. I remember one night staying at a factory till almost midnight, and we just kept putting together the puzzle pieces of how all the pieces were going in. Drop test, drop test, drop test. Something's broken. Okay, let's put it together a different way. Drop test, drop test, drop test. It worked. And until we found out, I mean, again, I think it's rare that companies want to get that much into the weeds or pay that much details to all the little details, but it's those little things that make a difference at the end.
Yeah, imagine that at Lowe's when you have glass light fixtures.
I'm sure you need a lot.
We won't mention how much money was lost in breakage on those things, but they fixed the problem. Yeah. So let's talk about the future a little bit. Where do you see the potential for private brand as we look at retailers moving forward?
Yeah, again, I think the expansion is where it's needed. Again, you mentioned Bed Bath & Beyond. If a retailer is doing well, private label plays a part. And if a retailer is not doing well, private label is not fixing all the problems. So I think where private label, does best is when you have buy down within the company and from the top, right? It's not just, oh, here's a project we're doing. It's a brand that we own, that we should be proud of, that we should be giving premium space to. And, I've had merchants say to me at times like, well, you're just going to China, this brand is out there. I'm like, that's the same person's going to the same factory. It's on the same production line. Like, why not trust me? I'm in-house. I see their production. I know what's happening. So to me, it's a differentiator. It's unique products. You can make better products. You can be 15, 20% below the national brand equivalent, and the customer's getting more, right? In a tough economic, situation that people are in these days, it's how do I make my money go further? How do I buy more for less? So I think private label plays that role. And then once you get that customer hooked on that uniqueness that only you provide, I've heard you talk about Trader Joe's and other retailers where, they have unique products or unique chips or unique flavors that I can't find at my big grocery stores. So I'll make an extra chip there to get that different product.
Very good. So Kevin is actually in between roles, as we said earlier. So if you're looking for somebody, please reach out to Kevin on LinkedIn or one of the social media platforms. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you. We always close with the same 5 questions. You have obviously already seen them. So question number 1, What's your favorite word?
I thought about this a while, and I think perseverance, doing something difficult despite the delay and the kind of reward or outcome. To me, that kind of describes, my private label journey. It's always been, hey, here's an idea. Can you get it in stores next month? No, there's a process. There's testing. Something's going to fail. You're going to have to change something. You're going to have to. So it's a journey and a process. So I think, you really have to persevere and stick with it. It kind of defines my career, kind of defines kind of what I've done. So I always say, if it's easy, it's probably not worth doing. Retail, private label, it's not rocket science. We're not curing cancer, but if you do it wrong, it's going to be an issue. So you have to kind of stick with it, be detailed, be obsessed on the details to make it better.
Awesome. So question number 2, are you more artistic or more mathematic?
Yeah, definitely more mathematic, just on, doing pricing, cost savings, and, container pricing, and always focusing on retail math. Although I have gotten better with artistic, my team would laugh when we were bringing in pet beds. I would pick prints and like, you don't know, you're not on trend. And I would keep track. I was like, I'm getting better at this. I'm getting able to, see what color is going to be a trend and what's happening. But definitely mathematic would be the answer.
Yeah. If you could share a meal with anyone, past or present, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I would say this one. I would say my mother. My mother passed away in 2010. She had some battles with some addictions that kind of got her. And I would say that's, heavy on me on, what it could have said, what you should have said, how you could have helped. So I would think that would be definitely the person I would choose.
That's a good one. So number 4, what profession other than your own would you have liked to have tried?
So I was discussing these with my wife and I was like, I need to be a hair model. And she said, you should say that. That's a ridiculous answer. And that would be something you would say. So
hey,
that was my joke. That was my joke. But when I first went to school, I was in physical therapy. I thought I wanted to go the physical therapist route and I kind of didn't finish that. So I always thought it was interesting dealing with athletes, helping them recover, how the body works, how to keep the body healthy. So physical therapist would be my
very good. And finally, number 5, if you could speak to yourself at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things, I network, use LinkedIn and networking and talking to others. I was so focused on what I was doing for the day and what I was going that I never really took time to work with others in the industry and communicate. The other thing I'd say is, I stuck with large retailers really long. Like, don't be afraid to go to a small startup and experience growth, experience wins and losses, experience doing multiple jobs and wearing multiple hats to be successful. So, not being afraid to make that change and find the next Chewy. And odds are maybe it wouldn't be the next Chewy. Maybe they go to business, but it's just another step in your career, another learning, another tool in your toolbox to make you better.
Somebody out there starting the next great retailer. Who it is, I don't know, but 15 years ago, people said that little guy in Seattle with a bookstore wasn't going to be anything.
Right. One of your last ones, you said retailers were asking you what they should be worried about. And you said 2 ladies in Denver. And it was, Chewy was 2 guys in South Florida. It's like, there's some small people out there doing some really cool things and they don't have the old systems, the old warehouses, the old processes that probably are slowing you down today, that they can be nimble and quick and they'll take market share fast. So that's something that everybody should maybe look for and do at least once in their career.
Absolutely. And you're right on spot on networking and all that. People ask, they're like, how do you know so many people? I'm like, I've been talking to people for the last 20 years. And in some cases, that was their first job when I started talking to them. So
I think I was maybe a senior manager of sourcing when you first reached out, and became a director, then became a senior director. And you would say, I'd love to talk. And, there was a lot of times where companies didn't want to share what we were doing. We didn't want to let people know how big we were, how much focus we were on private label. So I know there were many times I would have loved to talk to you, but we kind of had to pass until the time.
You just talk. Right. You never know. It's, we all need connections in our career. So it's a good thing. Well, very good. Well, this was a great conversation. This is my show, so I always get to plug the things that we're doing. So coming up in September is our 4th annual Velocity Sustainability Summit. So focuses strictly on private brand and sustainability, really being those 3 key things that private brand professionals have control over: the product, the packaging, and the messaging. So how are you telling your internal and your external constituents, customers, and your president or Wall Street about those first 2 things in an authentic way without greenwashing? Nobody's doing this great, I'll tell you right now. But
Yeah.
that's what the conversation's about. And it'll be exciting. We have Whole Foods and Misfit Markets, and got some representative from Meyer, and then a whole bunch of NGOs, Fair Trade and the Recycling Partnership, and all kinds of people. So please go sign up for the tickets. We'd love to see you in Austin. Kevin, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.